The cathedral bells rang 13 times instead of 12, and I knew exactly what would happen next. My sister Celestia stood at the altar, draped in white silk embroidered with golden stars, her arms raised toward the vaulted ceiling as 500 wealthy believers gasped in unison. I stood in the shadows at the back, wearing the plain gray dress of a temple servant, watching her bask in the glory of another divine vision that I had orchestrated down to the last detail. The bells proclaim it! Celestia's voice echoed through the sacred space, amplified by acoustics I had spent 3 nights perfecting. The 13th chime heralds the arrival of the Red Duke at our gates. He comes bearing gifts of war and pestilence, but fear not, for I have foreseen his defeat. Right on cue, the estas. The massive oak doors burst open. The Red Duke himself strode in, armor gleaming, sword drawn, his face twisted in fury. The congregation screamed and scattered, but Celestia stood her ground, serene and smiling. What none of them knew was that the Red Duke was actually Marcus, a struggling actor I'd hired from the theater district wearing armor I'd commissioned from a blacksmith 3 towns over. What they also didn't know was that in exactly 7 seconds, the chandelier directly above him would mysteriously detach from the ceiling. I had spent 2 weeks carefully filing through the support chains, calculating the exact weight distribution, timing it perfectly with his entrance. My fingers tightened around the hidden rope in my hand as I counted down. 3, 2, 1. The massive iron chandelier plummeted with a deafening crash. Marcus dove aside right where I'd told him to, the chandelier missing him by inches in a perfectly choreographed near miss. He scrambled to his feet, his face a mask of terror that was only half-acted, and fled back through the doors. Celestia lowered her arms slowly, her expression beatific. You see? The prophecy is fulfilled. The invader has been repelled by divine intervention. Our city is safe. The crowd erupted in tearful prayers and worship. Gold coins rained into the collection plates. I watched my sister drink in their adoration, their love, their faith, and felt the familiar burning in my chest that had become my constant companion over the past 3 years. This was supposed to be my life. These were supposed to be my prophecies. But Celestia had stolen everything from me, and now I was trapped in a prison of my own making, forced to orchestrate the very miracles that kept her on her throne of lies. But not for much longer. I had spent 3 years making her prophecies come true. Now, I would spend the next 3 days making my own prophecy come true, her complete and utter destruction. It started 7 years ago when I was 15 and Celestia was 17. We were daughters of House Silverthorn, a once great noble family that had fallen on hard times after father lost our fortune in a series of disastrous investments. Mother died shortly after, her heart broken by poverty and shame. We were left with nothing but our family name and the crumbling estate on the outskirts of the capital. I remember the night everything changed. I was in the library, the only room in our manor that hadn't been sold off piece by piece, studying ancient texts about divination and prophecy. I had always been fascinated by the old ways, by the stories of oracles and seers who could glimpse the threads of fate. I spent every spare moment devouring dusty tomes about astrology, numerology, and sacred geometry. I taught myself to read portents in the stars, to calculate probability using complex mathematical formulas, to cold read people by observing the smallest details of their behavior and dress. I wasn't truly psychic, but I didn't need to be. What I had was better: intelligence, dedication, and an obsessive attention to detail. I could predict events by carefully observing patterns, manipulating circumstances, and understanding human nature. I had successfully predicted 3 minor local events: a merchant's bankruptcy, a nobleman's affair, and a fire at the mill. Word had begun to spread about the youngest Silverthorn daughter's gift. That night, Father came to me in the library. His face was haggard, his eyes desperate. "Alara," he said, "I need you to do something for me, something important." "Anything, Father." "The High Priestess of the Cathedral of Divine Light is dying. They're searching for her successor. Tomorrow, they're holding trials for anyone who claims to have the gift of prophecy. I want you to participate." My heart soared. This was my chance. If I became the High Priestess, I would have wealth, power, and respect. I could restore our family's honor. "I'll do it," I said immediately. Father's expression was strange, conflicted. No, Ilara, not you. He paused. Celestia will go in your place. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? But father, I'm the one who… You're too young, too bookish. You don't have Celestia's presence, her beauty, her ability to command a room. His voice was firm but not unkind. But you're brilliant, Ilara. You have the true gift. So here's what we'll do. You'll tell Celestia what to say, what to predict. You'll be her secret advisor. Together, you'll win the trial, and when Celestia becomes High Priestess, she'll take care of our family. We'll have everything we lost and more. But I want to be the one… This isn't about what you want. His voice hardened. This is about survival, about restoring our house. Celestia has the looks, the charm. You have the brains. Combined, you're unstoppable. This is how it has to be. I should have refused. I should have fought back, but I was 15, desperate to please my father and naive enough to believe that this arrangement would be temporary, that eventually people would know the truth, that I would get the credit I deserved. I was such a fool. Next day, I coached Celestia on everything. I told her about the cathedral's political factions, the current high priestess's favorite scriptures, the anxieties of the common people. I taught her 3 prophecies to deliver during the trial. A prediction about the grain harvest, a warning about a minor lord's treachery, and a vision about the king's health. All 3 were based on careful research, inside information I'd gathered from servants and merchants, and calculated probability. Celestia delivered them flawlessly. She had always been the performer in our family, the one who could captivate an audience with a smile and a gesture. When she spoke my words in her melodious voice, her eyes burning with feigned conviction, even I almost believed she was truly blessed by the divine. She won the trial, she became the high priestess, and everything changed. At first, Celestia kept her promises. She sent money home to father. She let me live in the temple in a small servant's cell so I could continue advising her. Every week, we would meet in secret, and I would feed her the next prophecy, the next miracle to perform. I would spend days researching, calculating, planning, and then hand her my work on a silver platter. But as months turned to years, Celestia began to change. The power went to her head. She started to believe her own myth, to think that maybe she really was divinely chosen. She stopped being grateful for my help and started treating it as her due. Our meetings became shorter, more businesslike. She stopped asking my opinion and started demanding my prophecies. The payments to father became irregular, then stopped entirely. When I complained, she told me that father was drunk and gambling away whatever she sent him anyway. So what was the point? Then father died. Cirrhosis of the liver, the doctors said. Drinking himself to death in that crumbling manner, alone and forgotten. I found out 3 days after the funeral. Celestia hadn't even bothered to tell me. When I confronted her, she said, I was busy, Ilara. I have responsibilities. I'm the high priestess. I can't drop everything every time some drunkard dies. He was our father. He was a failure who sold his daughters like livestock. She turned away from me, dismissing me like a servant. You should be grateful I let you stay here. Where else would you go? She was right, and that made it worse. I had no money, no prospects, no family. I was entirely dependent on her charity. So I swallowed my rage and continued my work, continued making her look like a goddess among mortals while I toiled in obscurity. But Celestia wasn't satisfied with just being revered. She wanted to be loved, worshipped. She wanted absolute power over the faithful, and that meant giving them bigger miracles, more impressive prophecies. She demanded that I make increasingly elaborate predictions come true. That's when I started learning other skills. I studied architecture to understand how to make structures collapse at precise moments. I learned chemistry to create impressive but harmless smoke and fire effects. I befriended actors, craftsmen, blacksmiths, anyone who could help me stage my miracles. I became a master manipulator, a puppeteer pulling strings across the entire city. Also, my sister could point at my work and say, "Behold, the divine speaks through me." The worst part was watching her take lovers. Noble men and women would be invited to her private chambers, would worship her in ways both spiritual and carnal. I would pass them in the hallways, see the dazed, adoring looks on their faces. Meanwhile, I was forbidden from having any romantic attachments. "We can't risk you telling someone the truth," Celestia said. "Your vow of celibacy is for the protection of us both." So I lived like a ghost in the temple, unseen and unacknowledged, my brilliant mind dedicated entirely to propping up my sister's increasingly elaborate deception. Every prophecy that came true was another chain binding me to her service, because if the truth ever came out, I would be the one blamed. I was the architect of the fraud. Celestia could claim ignorance, say that she truly believed she was blessed and that I had deceived her. But me? I would be executed as a heretic and a fraud. She had trapped me perfectly, and she knew it. 3 months ago, something inside me finally broke. Celestia had demanded that I orchestrate her most ambitious prophecy yet. She would predict the exact day that the king's firstborn son would be born, and she would claim that the child was blessed by the gods themselves. The king and queen had been desperately trying to conceive for years, and this prophecy would cement Celestia's position as the most powerful religious figure in the kingdom. The problem was that the queen wasn't even pregnant yet. Celestia expected me to somehow make this happen, to manipulate reality itself to match her grandiose vision. I spent weeks in anguish trying to figure out how to make this work. I researched fertility treatments, bribed doctors, even considered trying to influence the royal couple's intimate schedule through their servants. It was impossible, insane, and yet Celestia expected me to deliver. Then I discovered the truth. The queen was already pregnant, had been for 2 months, but it was being kept secret because she had miscarried twice before, and the court feared the stress of public knowledge. I learned this by befriending a young palace maid who was terrified and needed someone to confide in. I learned that the queen was due in approximately 7 months and that the royal physicians believed the child would be a boy. I told Celestia to make her prophecy. 7 months from now, the queen would give birth to a blessed prince. She delivered it with her usual dramatic flair, and the entire kingdom held its breath in anticipation. When the prince was indeed born on the predicted day, Celestia's fame reached new heights. The king himself came to the cathedral to offer tribute. Celestia was granted estates, titles, a seat on the royal council. And I received nothing, not even a thank you. Just a new list of prophecies to fulfill, each more demanding than the last. That was when I realized the truth. This would never end. Celestia would use me until I was used up, and then she would discard me, probably by ensuring I had some kind of accident. I was too dangerous to be allowed to live once I was no longer useful. Every day I spent making her prophecies come true was another day closer to my own death. So I made a decision. I would orchestrate one final prophecy. But this one wouldn't glorify Celestia. This one would destroy her. And unlike all the others, this prophecy would be entirely true. I began planning 3 months ago, moving all my pieces into place with the same meticulous care I'd used for Celestia's miracles. But this time, I was working toward my own triumph, and the knowledge filled me with a cold, sharp joy. The first thing I did was secure my escape route and future. I spent 2 years secretly saving every copper coin that came my way, every small payment I could squeeze out of people who needed information or favors. It wasn't much, but it was enough to bribe the right people. I contacted an old merchant family in the southern provinces, people who owed me a debt from a prediction I'd made years ago that had saved their trading fleet. I arranged for a new identity. Papers, a cover story, a small house in a coastal town where no one knew the Silverthorn name. Next, I started documenting everything. Every prophecy, every manipulation, every staged miracle. I wrote it all down in meticulous detail, creating a ledger of deceit that would damn Celestia beyond any hope of redemption. I made 3 copies, hiding them in different locations. One with a lawyer who believed he was holding my last will and testament, one sealed in a box in the cathedral's own archives where it would eventually be discovered, and one with a traveling merchant who would deliver it to the king's council if I gave him a specific signal. Then I began identifying Celestia's vulnerabilities. Despite her power and popularity, she had made enemies. The old guard among the temple priests resented her rapid rise and modern methods. Several noble families disliked how much influence she had with the king. The Duchess of Ravencrest, in particular, hated Celestia for having an affair with her husband 3 years ago. These were all threads I could pull, but I needed more than just documents and allies. I needed a spectacle. I needed Celestia to destroy herself so completely that no one would ever believe her claims of divine blessing again. I needed her to be exposed as a fraud in the most dramatic and public way possible. That's when I conceived of the final prophecy. Celestia had been planning her grandest performance yet, the ceremony of eternal light. It would take place during the winter solstice when the cathedral would be packed with nobles, commoners, and foreign dignitaries. She would deliver a prophecy about the kingdom's future, and I was supposed to orchestrate a series of miracles to accompany her words. The eternal flame would blaze brighter than ever. The stained glass windows would seem to come alive, and a shaft of pure sunlight would pierce through the clouds to illuminate her face at the climactic moment. I told her I would make it happen, and I would, but not the way she expected. Over the next 3 months, I worked harder than I ever had before. I modified every element of the ceremony, making tiny changes that Celestia would never notice. I replaced the oil in the eternal flame with a mixture that would burn blue instead of gold. I loosened specific panes in the stained glass windows. I bribed the royal astronomer to give me precise calculations about the solstice sun's angle. And most importantly, I prepared the ultimate revelation. I also began planting seeds of doubt. I spread rumors through my network of informants, whispers that the high priestess might not be as divinely blessed as she claimed. I arranged for small prophecies to fail, making sure Celestia had no time to prepare. A prediction about a merchant's ship arriving on a certain day, I bribed the captain to delay by 2 days. A vision about a nobleman's marriage, I ensured the engagement was broken off before the wedding date. These were minor failures, easily explained away, but they created cracks in the facade of infallibility. Celestia began to panic. She demanded more spectacular miracles to restore her reputation. She became paranoid, suspicious that someone was sabotaging her. She was right, of course, but she never suspected me. How could she? I was her invisible servant, her loyal shadow. I had never given her any reason to doubt my dedication. 2 weeks before the solstice, I made my final preparations. I visited each of my allies, confirming they were ready to play their parts. I checked and rechecked every mechanism, every backup plan. I wrote a final letter to Celestia, which would be delivered after everything was over, explaining exactly what I had done and why. I wanted her to know, in her moment of complete defeat, that it was her own sister who had orchestrated her downfall. 1 week before the solstice, Celestia called me to her private chambers. I thought she might have discovered something, that this was the end. I prepared myself for confrontation, perhaps even violence. But when I arrived, she was sitting at her vanity, staring at her reflection with an expression I had never seen before, fear. "Alara," she said quietly, not looking at me. "Do you think I'm truly blessed by the divine?" The question shocked me. Celestia never expressed doubt, never acknowledged the possibility that she might be a fraud. I stood frozen, unsure how to respond. "Sometimes I wonder," she continued, still staring at herself. "All these miracles, all these prophecies, they're so perfect, too perfect, as if someone were arranging them." Finally, she looked at me, and for a moment I saw a flash of the sister I remembered from childhood, before ambition and power had corrupted her. "You've been arranging them, haven't you? All of them?" I could have lied. I could have reassured her, played my role for just 1 more week. But something in me rebelled. "Yes," I said simply. She nodded slowly, as if confirming something she had long suspected. "I thought so. I'm not actually special at all, am I? I'm just a beautiful face saying words you wrote, performing miracles you orchestrated. You're the real prophet, and I'm just your puppet." For a heartbeat, I felt something like pity for her, but then she kept talking. "But that doesn't matter anymore. No one can ever know the truth. My entire life, my power, my legacy, it all depends on maintaining the illusion. And you know what that means, Alara?" She stood up, her moment of vulnerability vanishing behind the mask of the high priestess. "It means you can never leave. You can never tell. You'll serve me until one of us dies. Because if the truth comes out, we're both destroyed. You're as trapped as I am. She was right, of course, but she didn't know that I had already accepted that truth and moved beyond it. I wasn't planning to tell anyone. I was planning something much better. The solstice ceremony will be your greatest triumph, I told her, letting her hear what she wanted to hear. I've prepared miracles that will make the gods themselves weep with envy. You'll be remembered forever. Celestia smiled, her confidence restored. Good, that's what I wanted to hear. You may go. I left her chambers and went back to my cell where I spent the night making final adjustments to my plan. Celestia was right that we were both trapped in this web of lies, but she had forgotten the most important rule about webs. Sometimes the only way to escape is to burn everything down. The morning of the winter solstice dawned cold and clear. Perfect weather for a miracle. The cathedral filled early, packed with everyone who mattered in the kingdom. The king and queen sat in the front row, their baby prince in the queen's arms. The nobles occupied the premium seats, dressed in their finest silks and velvets. Commoners crowded into the back and overflowed into the streets outside, eager to witness the high priestess's greatest prophecy. I spent the morning moving through the cathedral like a ghost, checking every mechanism one final time. The modified oil for the eternal flame, the loosened panes of stained glass, the ropes I had carefully frayed to breaking point, the trapdoor mechanism beneath the altar. Everything was ready. At noon, the ceremony began. Celestia made her entrance from the east transept, walking slowly down the center aisle as the choir sang hymns of praise. She looked magnificent, as always. Her robes were pure white silk, embroidered with threads of gold and silver, creating patterns of stars and suns that seemed to shimmer with their own light. Her hair was braided with diamonds, her face was serene, confident, godlike. She reached the altar and raised her arms. The choir fell silent. The crowd held its breath. People of the realm, Celestia's voice rang out, clear and commanding. I come before you on this sacred day to deliver a prophecy of great importance. The divine has spoken to me in visions of light and fire. Our kingdom stands at a crossroads. In the coming year, we will face a great trial, a testing of our faith and resolve. But fear not, for I have seen our triumph. If we remain true to the divine path, if we trust in the blessings of heaven, we shall emerge stronger than ever before. It was vague enough to apply to almost anything, specific enough to sound meaningful, classic prophetic double talk that I had written myself. The crowd murmured their approval. To prove the truth of my vision, Celestia continued, the divine will provide signs. First, the eternal flame shall burn with the light of heaven itself. This was my cue. I pulled the first hidden rope and the special mixture I had added to the eternal flame's oil ignited. But instead of the blue light I had planned, the flame suddenly roared 20 feet high, burning a brilliant gold. The crowd gasped in awe. Wait, that wasn't right. I hadn't planned for that. I had triple-checked the oil mixture. It should have burned blue, not gold, and certainly not that tall. Someone had changed my preparations. My heart began to race. Something was wrong. Celestia seemed as surprised as I was, but she recovered quickly, her expression shifting to one of humble acceptance. Behold the glory of the divine, she proclaimed. She moved to the second miracle. The windows of this sacred place shall come alive with holy light. I pulled the second rope, which should have caused one specific pane to fall and shatter dramatically. Instead, all the windows suddenly blazed with colored light, brighter than I had ever seen them. The effect was stunning, breathtaking. The crowd erupted in prayers and tears. But I hadn't done that. That wasn't possible with the modifications I had made. Someone else was interfering with my plan. Celestia raised her hands higher, her voice crescendoing. And now, as the sun reaches its apex, the divine light shall descend from heaven to anoint me as the true prophet of the realm. This was the climax of my plan. At the exact moment calculated by the royal astronomer, a shaft of sunlight should have broken through the clouds to illuminate Celestia. But I had arranged for that light to reveal something else, a hidden mirror system that would project my written confession onto the white marble walls, exposing every detail of our fraud. The timing had to be perfect. The moment arrived, the sun broke through, and the shaft of light did hit Celestia exactly where it was supposed to. But instead of revealing my confession, something else happened. Something impossible. Celestia began to glow, not from any trick of lighting or mirrors, but from within. Her skin emitted a soft, pure radiance. Her eyes turned white with inner fire. When she spoke, her voice resonated with harmonics that no human throat should be able to produce. People of the realm, I am the chosen vessel of the divine. My prophecies are true. My power is genuine, and anyone who dares to doubt or deceive shall face the wrath of heaven. She turned to look directly at me, still glowing, still terrible and beautiful, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that she knew everything. She had discovered my plan, and somehow, impossibly, she had gained real power to counter it. There is a traitor among us, Celestia declared, her glowing eyes fixed on me. A deceiver who has attempted to undermine the divine work, a sister who has forgotten her place and sought to steal glory that was never meant for her. The crowd followed her gaze. Hundreds of eyes turned to stare at me, standing in the shadows at the back of the cathedral. I felt my carefully constructed plans crumbling around me. Celestia raised one glowing hand and pointed at me. Alara Silverthorn, you are hereby declared a heretic and a fraud. Guards, seize her. Temple guards moved toward me from both sides. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. I'd planned everything so carefully, had accounted for every possibility. How had she gained actual power? It was impossible. Magic didn't exist. Prophecy was just observation and manipulation. Everything I knew about the world told me this couldn't be real. But the evidence of my eyes said otherwise. Celestia was floating now, hovering 3 feet above the altar, radiant as the sun. The crowd had fallen to their knees in worship, and I was being dragged forward by guards, my feet scraping against the stone floor toward a sister who had become something beyond human. They forced me to my knees before the altar. Celestia descended slowly, her feet touching the ground as the glow around her dimmed slightly. She looked down at me with an expression of mingled pity and triumph. "Did you really think I didn't know?" she said softly, so only I could hear. "I've known about your resentment, your little plans for months. I have friends everywhere, Alara. Informants, loyalists. They told me about your meetings, your preparations, your documents. And I realized something. You were right. I wasn't truly chosen. I was a fraud, propped up by your clever tricks." She knelt down to look me in the eyes. So I went searching for real power. And I found it. There are old gods, Alara. Ancient powers that sleep beneath the world, waiting for someone ambitious enough to wake them. 3 months ago, I performed a ritual in the deepest catacombs beneath this cathedral. I offered them my soul in exchange for genuine divine power, and they accepted. My blood ran cold. She couldn't mean what I thought she meant. "I am truly blessed now," Celestia whispered. "Not by your tricks, but by powers you can't even comprehend. Your little confession documents? I found them all and burned them. Your allies? I've paid them more than you ever could to stay silent. Your escape plan already thwarted. You have nothing, Alara. You are nothing. And now, before all these witnesses, I will demonstrate what happens to those who oppose the divine." She stood up and addressed the crowd. "This woman has confessed to me that she has been attempting to manipulate the holy prophecies, to make it appear as though she was the true prophet and I was merely her puppet. She sought to steal the divine grace for herself. But the gods have revealed her treachery to me, and now she must be punished." "No!" I screamed. "It's not true. She's lying. I'm the one who made all her prophecies come true. I'm the one—" Celestia gestured, and my voice cut off mid-sentence. I tried to speak, but no sound emerged. She had somehow stolen my voice. "See how the guilty protest?" Celestia said to the crowd. "But the divine has rendered judgment. She will be taken to the dungeons beneath the cathedral, where she will spend the rest of her days in penance and prayer. Perhaps if she truly repents, the gods may one day forgive her, but that is between her and the divine." The guards dragged me away. I struggled, tried to scream, but nothing worked. The last thing I saw before they hauled me out of the cathedral was Celestia's face, glowing with power and satisfaction as the crowd chanted her name in worship. I had lost. After all my careful planning, all my cleverness, I had been outmaneuvered by my own sister. And worse, she had gained real power in the process, power I could never hope to match. They threw me into a cell deep beneath the cathedral. The door slammed shut with a finality that echoed through my bones. I was alone in the darkness, my voice gone, my plans in ruins, my future reduced to nothing but stone walls and regret. This was supposed to be my story. These were supposed to be my prophecies. But Celestia had taken everything, even reality itself, and bent it to her will. I had spent 3 years making her prophecies come true, and in doing so, I had made myself obsolete. She didn't need me anymore. She had found real power, and I was just a threat to be eliminated. I curled up in the corner of my cell and closed my eyes, trying not to think about the decades of imprisonment stretching before me, trying not to think about how I had brought this on myself by being too clever, too ambitious, too eager for revenge. The prophecy had come true, but it had been Celestia's prophecy all along, the prophecy of my defeat. 3 days passed in the darkness of my cell. I had no voice to scream with, no hope to cling to. I ate the meager food they pushed through the slot in Uskentis, the door, and drank the stale water, keeping myself alive out of pure, stubborn refusal to give Celestia the satisfaction of my death. On the 4th day, something changed. I felt it before I heard it, a deep rumbling in the stones, a vibration that seemed to come from the very bones of the earth. The floor beneath me trembled. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and then I heard the screams. They were distant, muffled by layers of stone, but unmistakable. Terror and agony. Dozens of voices crying out at once. The rumbling grew louder, more violent. An earthquake? No, this was something else. Something deliberate. My cell door exploded inward, torn from its hinges by an invisible force. I scrambled back against the wall, expecting guards or worse. Instead, a figure stepped through the smoke and dust. At first, I thought it was Celestia, come to gloat over my imprisonment. But as the figure came closer, I realized it was someone else. Someone I had never seen before, yet somehow recognized. She was tall and regal, with silver hair and eyes that burned like stars. She wore robes of midnight blue embroidered with constellations that seemed to move across the fabric. Power radiated from her like heat from a forge. "Alara Silverthorn," she said, her voice resonating with the same harmonics I had heard from Celestia. "I am the Oracle of the First Moon, and I have come to offer you a choice." I tried to speak, but my voice was still gone. The oracle gestured, and I felt the magical bindings around my throat dissolve. I gasped, coughed, and finally managed to croak out, "What choice?" "Your sister made a bargain with ancient powers," the oracle said. "She offered her soul for divine power, and they accepted. But she did not understand the price. The gods she called upon are not benevolent. They are hungry. They feed on worship, on faith, on fear. And your sister has been feeding them well." The oracle moved closer, her star-bright eyes studying me intently. "But the pact she made was incomplete. She offered her own soul, but the gods wanted more. They wanted a paired sacrifice. 2 sisters, 2 souls bound together in eternal service. That was the true price of the power she sought. And she was going to pay it by eventually sacrificing you once you had served your purpose." I felt cold horror wash over me. She was going to kill me? Not kill, worse. She was going to offer you to the gods as a living sacrifice, to be devoured slowly over centuries while she retained her power. She has been planning this since she made the pact. Your imprisonment was just the first step. Why are you telling me this?" The oracle smiled, and it was not a kind expression. "Because I represent a different pantheon. The old gods, the true gods, who have been watching this little drama unfold with great interest. Your sister awakened powers that were meant to remain sleeping, and in doing so, she has upset a very delicate balance. We cannot allow her to continue. Serving the hungry ones, she must be stopped. And you want me to stop her? I laughed bitterly at Tom. I tried, I failed. She has real power now, I'm just a clever fraud. Are you? The oracle tilted her head. You orchestrated miracles for 3 years, Alara. You made the impossible happen through sheer brilliance and determination. You manipulated reality itself through observation and calculation. Do you truly believe there is such a difference between that and what we call magic? Between understanding the world so perfectly that you can predict and shape it, and using power to do the same? She extended her hand. I offer you genuine power, Alara Silverthorn, not stolen from hungry gods, but granted by the true divine. The power to see the threads of fate, to weave them into new patterns, the power to make your prophecies come true, not through tricks and manipulation, but through genuine divine grace. Accept this gift and you will be able to stand against your sister. Refuse and you will die in this dungeon, slowly consumed by the forces she has unleashed. I stared at her hand. Everything I knew told me this was impossible. Magic wasn't real. The divine wasn't real. And yet, I had seen Celestia float and glow. I had felt my voice stolen by her power. The evidence of my own senses told me that everything I believed about the world was wrong. And I realized something. I didn't care if it was real or not. I didn't care about truth or reality or the fundamental nature of existence. I cared about one thing only: destroying Celestia, making her pay for what she had done to me, to Father, to the memory of everything we might have been. What's the price? I asked. Service, the oracle said simply. Accept this power and you will become a true prophet. You will see the future, shape events, guide the faithful, but you will serve the balance of the world, not your own ambitions. Can you accept that? If it means destroying my sister, yes. The oracle's smile widened. Then take my hand, Alara Silverthorn. Take it, and become what you were always meant to be. I reached out and grasped her hand. Power flooded into me like liquid fire. I screamed as my nerves ignited, as my mind expanded, as reality itself seemed to peel back to reveal the infinite complexity beneath. I saw everything: the past, the present, the future, all the possible timelines branching and converging like rivers flowing toward the sea. I saw Celestia in her chambers, performing dark rituals to feed her hungry gods. I saw the kingdom's future, multiple paths leading to glory or ruin depending on choices not yet made. I saw myself in 1,000 different versions: triumphant, dead, transformed, broken. And I saw the truth about Celestia's power. It wasn't truly divine. It was parasitic. The gods she served were leeching the faith and fear of the people, growing stronger while the land around them grew weaker. Already crops were beginning to fail. Children were being born sick. The very fabric of reality was fraying under the weight of their hunger. If Celestia wasn't stopped, she would consume the entire kingdom in her quest for power, and she wouldn't even realize she was doing it until it was too late. The vision faded. I found myself standing in my cell, but I was changed. I could feel power thrumming through my veins, could see the threads of fate glowing around me like spider webs of light. I was no longer Alara the clever fraud. I was Alara the true prophet, and I had work to do. Thank you, I said to the oracle, my voice strong and clear. She nodded. Stop your sister. Save the kingdom. Restore the balance. That is your task. How you accomplish it is up to you, but know this: you cannot kill her. Her death would release the hungry gods entirely, and they would ravage this world. You must find another way. I understand. The oracle began to fade, dissolving into silver light. One more thing, Alara. Your sister was wrong about many things, but she was right about one. You are the real prophet. You always were. You never needed tricks or power. You had the gift all along. All I did was help you see it. Then she was gone. And I was alone. But not alone. I could feel the presence of the true gods, The old powers that had existed since the first dawn, watching me with patient approval. I had their blessing now. I had their power, and I was going to use it to bring Celestia down once and for all. I walked out of the dungeon unopposed. The guards who should have stopped me simply didn't see me. I had wrapped myself in a veil of probability, making myself the least noticeable thing in every room. It was a trick I would have killed for back when I was just a clever fraud. Now it was as natural as breathing. I made my way through the cathedral's lower levels, following the threads of fate that led toward confrontation. I could see now what I couldn't before, Celestia's entire network of power. The nodes of belief where she had placed enchanted objects to harvest worship. The hidden chambers where she performed her dark rituals. The innocent people whose faith she was slowly devouring to feed her hungry gods. It made me sick. Whatever petty resentments I had felt before, whatever desire for recognition or revenge, it all fell away in the face of this greater evil. Celestia wasn't just a fraud or a thief anymore. She was a monster, and she didn't even know it. I found her in her private chambers, surrounded by dozens of candles, chanting in a language I didn't recognize but somehow understood. She was performing another ritual, feeding more power to her gods. I could see them now, shadowy figures lurking at the edges of reality, their mouths open and hungry. I stepped through her protective wards as if they didn't exist. They were designed to keep out hostile magic, but what I carried wasn't hostile, it was simply true. Truth needed no permission to enter. Celestia's eyes snapped open when she sensed my presence. The glow around her intensified. How did you escape? How are you? Then she saw it, saw the power radiating from me, and her expression shifted from surprise to fear. What have you done? I accepted the gift you should have sought, I said calmly. True divine power, not the parasitic bargain you made with hungry gods. You're lying. There are no other gods. I've claimed all the divine power in this world. You've claimed nothing but leashed demons wearing the skin of divinity. I gestured, and the shadows around her became visible, revealing the horrible truth of what she had been worshipping. Tentacled things with too many mouths, screaming faces twisted in eternal hunger. Celestia stumbled backward, seeing them for the first time. No, she whispered. No, they promised me. They said I would be a goddess. They lied, they always lie. And now they're using you to consume this entire kingdom. Every prophecy you've made for the past 3 months, every miracle, it's all been designed to increase fear and dependency, to make people worship you more desperately. You're not their prophet. You're their bait. Celestia's face twisted with rage. Even now, you try to take everything from me. You can't stand that I succeeded, that I became something greater than you ever could be. I don't want to take anything from you, Celestia. I want to save you. Save me? She laughed, and it was the sound of breaking glass. I don't need saving. I have power. I have worshippers. I have everything I ever wanted. You have nothing. Look at yourself. Really look. I pulled another veil away, this one hiding the truth of what the parasitic power was doing to her. Celestia gasped when she saw her reflection in the mirror across the room. Her beautiful face was cracking like porcelain, revealing something dark and rotting underneath. Her hands, which she had always kept so perfect, were withering into claws. She was being consumed from within, slowly transformed into another hungry thing to serve the gods she had foolishly bargained with. This is what you chose, I said softly. This is what you've been becoming. In another year, there won't be anything left of Celestia Silverthorn, just another demon wearing her face, feeding on the faith of the innocent. She fell to her knees, staring at her reflection with horror. No, this can't be happening. I was supposed to be a goddess. I was supposed to be immortal, beautiful, powerful, forever. You were supposed to be my sister. The words hung in the air between us. Celestia looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I saw genuine tears in her eyes. Alara, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of it. For taking your prophecies, for using you, for planning to sacrifice you. I was jealous and bitter, and so desperate to be special that I didn't care who I hurt. I didn't even realize what I was becoming. I knelt down beside her. I know, and I'm sorry too. I should have stopped you earlier. I should have found a way to break us free from Father's plan before it consumed us both. Can you fix this? Can you save me? I looked at the threads of fate surrounding her. They were tangled, dark, leading toward inevitable destruction. But there were a few thin strands of hope remaining, possibilities where she survived and saved. They were fragile, unlikely, but they existed. There might be a way, I said slowly. But it will cost you everything. Your power, your position, your beauty, your fame. Everything you've built will have to be destroyed. Can you accept that? Celestia looked at her cracking hands, then at the hungry shadows still lurking around her, then finally at me. If the alternative is becoming one of those things, then yes, I can accept it. Then listen carefully. I'm going to perform a prophecy, a real one, and you're going to help me make it come true. The next morning, I called for an emergency gathering in the cathedral. I used Celestia's authority, her seals and signatures to summon every person of importance in the kingdom. The king and queen came, the nobles came, the common people flooded in, eager to witness whatever new miracle their high priestess had prepared. But this time, I would be the one on the altar. And Celestia would stand in the shadows, watching me work, finally understanding what I had done for her all these years. I had dressed her in my plain gray servant's robes. I had removed all her jewelry, washed the makeup from her face, cut her elaborate hairstyle into something simple. She looked ordinary now, unremarkable. Just a woman, not a goddess. Meanwhile, I wore robes of silver and white, embroidered with true constellations that shifted and moved across the fabric. The power of the old gods flowed through me, visible to anyone with eyes to see. When I walked down the center aisle toward the altar, people gasped and whispered. Who was this new figure? Where was the high priestess? I reached the altar and turned to face the crowd. People of the realm, I said, my voice carrying effortlessly through the vast space. I am Alara Silverthorn, and I have come to deliver a prophecy of great importance. Murmurs of confusion rippled through the congregation. Someone shouted, Where is the high priestess Celestia? She is here, I said, gesturing to where Celestia stood in the shadows. But she is no longer your high priestess. That title was built on deception, on power stolen from hungry gods who sought only to consume you. Celestia Silverthorn made a bargain she did not understand, and in doing so, she endangered this entire kingdom. The crowd erupted in shock and anger. The guards began moving toward me, but I raised my hand and they froze, held in place by invisible threads of probability. Hear my prophecy before you judge, I commanded, and the authority in my voice was absolute. The power of true divinity cannot be denied. They fell silent, even the king and Asende. Queen sat transfixed, waiting. For 3 years, I began, Poeti. The woman you knew as the high priestess has delivered prophecies and performed miracles. You believed her, blessed by the divine. You were wrong. She was blessed by nothing but my cleverness and dedication. Every prophecy she spoke came from my lips first. Every miracle she performed was orchestrated by my hand. I made her prophecies come true through observation, calculation, and manipulation. She was the face, but I was the mind. Gasps and protests erupted again, but I continued speaking over them. But Celestia grew drunk on power, on worship, on the adoration you gave her. She sought greater power still, and in her ambition, she made a pact with forces that would devour this world. She fed them your faith, your fear, your prayers, and they grew stronger while she slowly transformed into something monstrous. I gestured, and the illusions hiding Celestia's true condition fell away. The crowd screamed when they saw her cracking skin, her withering hands, the shadows that clung to her like hungry children. This is what becomes of those who bargain with false gods, I said. This is the price of stolen power. The king stood up, his face pale but resolute. If what you say is true, then the high priestess must be arrested and tried for heresy and fraud. And you, whoever you are, must answer for your role in this deception. I will, I said. I am guilty of enabling my sister's ambition, of choosing family loyalty over truth. I am guilty of allowing this fraud to continue for years when I should have exposed it immediately. I accept responsibility for my crimes, but first, I must complete my prophecy. I walked to where Celestia stood, now revealed and vulnerable before the entire kingdom. I took her trembling hands in mine. The prophecy is this: Celestia Silverthorn will be stripped of all power, all position, all prestige. She will be exiled from this cathedral and this city, forbidden from ever claiming divine authority again. And in her exile, she will learn humility, compassion, and the true meaning of faith. I turned back to the crowd. As for the hungry gods she awakened, I will seal them away, banishing them back to the darkness from which they emerged. This I swear by the true divine, by the old powers that have watched over this world since its creation. And unlike my sister's false prophecies, this one will come true not through tricks, but through genuine divine grace. I raised my hands and power flooded through me. I could see the threads connecting Celestia to her parasitic gods, dark strands of corrupted fate that bound them together. I began severing them one by one, cutting her free from the bargain she had made. She screamed as the process tore at her soul, as the power she had grown addicted to was ripped away. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. This was the only way to save her. The hungry gods howled in rage as their connection to the mortal world was severed. They lashed out, trying to maintain their hold, but I wove new threads of fate around them, binding them, sealing them, pushing them back through the cracks in reality through which they had emerged. It took every ounce of power I possessed, every bit of divine grace the old gods had granted me. My nose began to bleed, my vision blurred, but I kept working, kept weaving, kept sealing. Finally, with a sound like thunder, the connection snapped completely. Celestia collapsed to the floor, unconscious but alive. The shadows around her dissolved. The cracks in her skin began to heal. She was free. I turned back to the crowd, exhausted but triumphant. It is done. The false gods are banished. Your kingdom is safe, and the true prophecy has been fulfilled. The king approached me slowly, studying me with careful eyes. What you have done here today, the power you demonstrated, is beyond anything I have seen in my lifetime. If what you say is true, if you can truly see the threads of fate and weave them into new patterns, then you have a gift that must be used wisely. I intend to use it to serve the balance, Your Majesty. Nothing more, nothing less. Then I propose this. Remain here in this cathedral as the new oracle of the realm. Guide us with true prophecies, not false ones. Help us avoid the pitfalls that await us. And if you prove worthy of that trust, you will be granted authority and resources to do this work properly. I looked at Celestia, still unconscious on the floor. I looked at the crowd, their faces a mixture of fear, awe, and hope. I looked at the threads of fate spreading out before me, showing me countless possible futures. In most of them, I accepted the king's offer. I became the new spiritual leader of the kingdom, using my genuine gifts to guide and protect. I was respected, honored, remembered. It was everything I had once wanted. But in a few threads, I saw a different path. I saw myself leaving this place, traveling the world, helping people with my gifts, but never seeking power or position. I saw a life of service without authority, of prophecy without prestige. It was harder, lonelier, less glorious. But it was genuine. It was true. I made my choice. Thank you for your offer, Your Majesty, but I must decline. I am not meant to be an oracle of the realm. I am meant to be a wandering prophet, going where the threads of fate lead me, helping those who need help, preventing disasters before they occur. I will not stay in one place, will not build a temple or gather worshippers. That path leads only to corruption, as my sister learned. The king nodded slowly, with what might have been respect. You are wiser than I gave you credit for. Very well, you are free to go, but know that if you ever need sanctuary or assistance, my court will provide it. I bowed deeply. I am grateful, Your Majesty. I turned to look at Celestia one last time. She was beginning to stir, her eyes fluttering open, when she saw me standing over her. She flinched. "Are you going to leave me?" she whispered. "Yes," I said simply, "but you need to find your own path now without me to hold you up or tear you down. You need to discover who you are when you're not pretending to be a goddess. It will be hard. You'll probably fail many times before you succeed, but it's the only way you'll ever truly be free. I don't know how to be anything but a prophet." "Then learn. You have time." I pulled out a small pouch of coins and pressed it into her hand. "This is enough to get you started somewhere new. Use it wisely." "And Celestia?" I leaned down close. "I forgive you. For everything. I hope someday you'll forgive yourself." Tears streamed down her face. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "No one ever does. That's what makes it grace." I straightened up and addressed the crowd one final time. "People of the realm, I leave you with this prophecy. In the years to come, you will face many trials. Wars, famines, plagues, all the challenges that test mortal hearts. But if you remain true to genuine faith, not faith in false prophets or hungry gods, but faith in truth, in compassion, in the work of building a better world, you will endure. You will thrive. That is my prophecy, and I will spend the rest of my life making it come true, one person at a time." I walked down the center aisle toward the doors, toward the light spilling in from outside, toward the uncertain future that awaited me. People moved aside to let me pass, some bowing, some just staring. I didn't look back. I couldn't afford to. Looking back was what had kept me trapped for so long, bound to my sister's lies and my own resentment. As I stepped out into the cold winter air, I felt truly free for the first time in my life. No more prophecies to orchestrate. No more miracles to fake. No more living in someone else's shadow. Just me, my genuine gifts, and the open road. Behind me, the cathedral bells began to ring. Not 13 times this time, but 12, marking the proper hour. The age of false prophecies was over. The age of truth had begun, and I was finally, truly the prophet I was always meant to be. 5 years have passed since that winter solstice. I've traveled across the kingdom and beyond, following the threads of fate wherever they lead. I've prevented 3 wars by helping opposing leaders and see the futility of their conflicts. I've stopped 2 plagues before they could spread by recognizing the early signs and teaching villages about proper sanitation. I've saved 17 people from suicide by appearing at exactly the right moment with exactly the right words. I've helped farmers maximize their harvests by teaching them to read weather patterns. I've reunited lost families, exposed corrupt officials, and guided young prophets who were just discovering their gifts. I live simply, accepting only what I need to survive. I sleep under the stars more often than in beds. I eat bread and cheese and whatever kindness strangers offer. I own nothing but my traveling robes, a staff, and this journal where I record my prophecies so that others might learn from them someday. People call me the wandering oracle now. Some worship me. I discourage that. Some fear me. I understand that. Some simply appreciate the help I offer. That's what I prefer. I've heard news of Celestia from time to time. After her exile, she wandered for a while, struggling with her identity and purpose. Eventually, she settled in a small village on the coast where she works as a healer. She uses no magic, no prophecy, just practical medical knowledge and genuine compassion. She'll never be famous again, never be worshipped. But from what I hear, she's happy. She's found a kind of peace in obscurity that she could never have found on a throne. I'm glad. We both needed to lose everything to find out who we really were. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what would have happened if I had accepted the king's offer. If I had become the new high priestess, the official oracle of the realm. Would I have fallen into the same traps as Celestia? Would power and prestige have corrupted me too? I'd like to think I would have remained true to my purpose, but I'm honest enough to admit I don't know. The threads of fate show possibilities, not certainties. What I do know is that I made the right choice for me. I'm not meant to build institutions or gather followers. I'm meant to be a force of nature, appearing when needed, helping where I can, then moving on before anyone can make an idol out of me. That's how you stay genuine in a world that's constantly trying to make prophets into gods. Yesterday, I had a vision, a true one, undeniable and clear. I saw Celestia, 20 years older, surrounded by children she had healed and families she had helped. I saw her smile, genuine and unforced, with no trace of the desperate ambition that once consumed her. And I saw her holding a letter, one I will write to her soon, telling her that I'm proud of who she's become. I also saw myself, continuing this wandering life until the day I'm too old and tired to go on. I saw my death, peaceful and unremarkable, in a small village where no one knows my name. No funeral for a high priestess, no mourning crowds, no monument. Just a quiet grave and the memory of help given when it was needed. It's a good death, an honest one. The kind of death that a real prophet deserves. But that's far in the future. For now, I have prophecies to make and work to do. The threads are pulling me north, toward a city where a young girl with genuine gifts is about to be burned as a witch. I need to get there in 3 days to prevent it. After that, there's a famine brewing in the eastern provinces that I might be able to mitigate. And after that, well, I'll see where the threads lead me. This is my life now, making prophecies come true through genuine divine grace and hard work, helping people who need help, preventing disasters before they happen, staying true to the balance and never claiming credit or authority. My sister was hailed as a prophetess. I was the one secretly making all her prophecies come true. And now, finally, I'm making my own prophecies come true. The ones that matter, the ones that heal instead of harm. It turns out that was what I wanted all along, not the glory or the worship or the power. Just the chance to use my gifts to make the world a little better, one small prophecy at a time. And that's the truest prophecy of all, that sometimes the things we think we want are just shadows of what we actually need. Celestia wanted to be worshipped. I wanted to be recognized. But what we both needed was to be freed from the lies we'd built our lives upon so we could finally become who we were meant to be. Her path led to a quiet village and a healer's hands. Mine led to the open road and a prophet's staff. Different destinations, but the same journey. From fraud to truth, from ambition to peace, from prophecy to genuine grace. And that's how my story ends, or rather, how it continues. Because prophecy isn't about endings, it's about seeing the future and working to make the best version of it come true. One day, one person, one small miracle at a time. The threads are glowing again, showing me the path forward. Time to move on. There's a young girl who needs saving, and I'm the only one who can see she's about to burn. This is what it means to be a true prophet, to see what others cannot, to act when others will not, and to walk away before they can make a goddess out of you. I shoulder my pack, grip my staff, and start walking north. The winter sun is warm on my face. The road stretches out before me, full of possibility. And for the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, the end.